All right, Christian ethics. We're gonna go really, really fast again. Where are we? There we are. Oh, look at this. Look at this, guys. Oh, I see Corey's paper. Look at that. What's that doing down there? Yeah. Want to see how he thought he was going to get a C minus? All right. But he got an A.
A minus.
A minus. All right. Is there anything to drink there? Somebody do. That's it? We have no coffee? I'll do communion instead. With the light candle.
No, you want coffee. There's coffee.
Is there coffee?
There is. Yeah, Stan made some.
Sam? Stan?
Yeah.
Sam?
Do you like
Sam,
your
Stan?
favorite sugar?
Mm-hmm.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, a little bit of each. All right, Christian ethics. We've ended on nominalism, utilitarianism. We talked about those things. And I know that's way, way, way early in the game, but we also have to have a little bit of fun doing ethics. Now, listen to this. We're going to move really fast. I have a Q&A here where you're going to guess the answers. Not going to do that. We're going to go question, answer, because I want to actually touch on abortion, euthanasia. I want to talk about homosexuality. And we'll be going real fast, and it shouldn't be new to you, because right at this point, it's better to touch on this stuff at the end than per the book, because you've written papers on this. You've written book summaries on it, so you got it down. All right, the Linden Avenue Middle School in New York have asked students to kiss same-sex classmates to teach them acceptance of alternative lifestyles and to discourage bullying. Parents were given no warning about the presentation. There was no opportunity to opt out, right? So both the school principal and the district superintendent are defending the workshops and advising they will schedule more. Isn't that great? What would you think of that? Are public schools now an unsafe place to send your child?
Yep.
It is, right? You know, I got to tell you, Geisler, I was homeschooling, I should say we were, my wife and I. We homeschooled, let's see, how many kids do I have? That's right, I'm joking. Two of my daughters, I guess you could say even one of the older, for a short while, maybe 2 semesters. But Nikao, my son, we homeschooled him. But, you know, it's close to impossible to have biblical Xbox, you know, going. And, you know, he's got a cell phone, and I know people think that he should not have a cell phone, laptop, and all this other stuff. You know what? I think they should. You know, we're living in an age of geeks. I hate to say it. And the way kids look stuff up right now is straight on YouTube. Along with that, of course, comes bad stuff, too. You know, I'm going to activate one of my old laptops, old compact, you know, and so he can do Minecraft. Minecraft is a great game. It looks very boring to me, but, man, he builds houses and everything else. Point being, though, is homeschooling him, me and my wife had a debate. And she's like, public school's good enough for me, it's good enough for him. Talking to some of my Christian friends. Listen, I can send my kids there, you can send them there. And I was like, no. First of all, it's not like I'm wealthy. I can afford sending him to that school. You know? By this time, I should have more degrees than the thermometer, but I couldn't. I have to put myself in check because he's more important. And, you know, they do the Pledge of Allegiance. They're not being taught that, you know, he's an animal. He's not being taught that at all. He has to memorize. They do Pledge Allegiance, yeah. They have to memorize a Bible verse a week, you know, 20 words a week, and they're doing science, they're doing this, and it's just good stuff. You know what? Even in one of the history books, we got to a page. No, this was when he was homeschooled. You know, you have the computer, you've been homeschooled, and he's in, what was he in, 2nd grade. And I would be, history, of course, I would go through the history books with him. And there comes like the first 10 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. He goes, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod. I was like, yeah, right on, you know. But he was like, he wasn't surprised. When he turned that page, he was able to see it. But then it got to be, he demanded so much, you know what I mean, that, you know what you can do in 40 minutes that you should be doing in 5 hours. Close to impossible. especially, single parents, even working families, and you just can't leave your kid to yourself, unless they're like the ultimate just, I love homework, There's a word for that. Most people don't. So anyways, we agreed on sending him to Christian school, and I guess, Nick, you better work harder. So I am. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. But here's what you get at the public schools. We'll talk about that when we get to homosexuality. Are you able to read that okay? Or should we blow it up?
Blow it up.
All right. You even got your glasses on, Craig. Come on now. Now I have to put mine on.
That was Tony.
See how small mine is? All right. So what do we think about schools? Now, what about this? Here's another discussion, and we're not going to discuss it. I'm just going to go through it. Palestinian Christians near Bethlehem on Monday, this is a while back, used Pope Francis to speak up against Israeli decisions to build its controversial separation barrier. Now, when we went to, remember Rachel's tomb in Bethlehem? That is a weird place, right? You're like surrounded by all these walls, and you're like, wow. That's when you get it.
The driver was really nervous. That was the most nervous. Other than Saddam Hussein highway when we got out and took the photo, he didn't really like that.
Would you share that story with the class when we got to the Saddam Hussein bridge? I had a great idea. We're in this van.
There was just a freeway sign, just like here, a green freeway sign.
Between Jerusalem and the Dead Sea, before you head right up to Jerusalem.
Highway, and we thought, well, let's just stop here on the freeway and jump out of the van and take a photo with our gas masks on. So we did. So, but the driver was not happy with us.
No. We actually, we had an Arab driver, because I didn't need...
Because it's right on the border of Jordan. I think that he didn't like that.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a lot of military.
Just because there was ruckus going on in Jerusalem last time I went there, and we were there, and so I told everybody just buy gas masks. Or no, I mentioned that, and then we all got these Russian, British, whatever American gas masks, and you'd think at the airport they would go like, what the world is that? Nobody said a word. So me and this Arab Muslim, he's sitting here and driving, and we got everybody in the back, and I'm in the front, and we're mapping everything and lecturing a little bit, just having a great time. And so we get to my one of those odd areas, Jordan right here, and you're on this desolate highway headed to Jerusalem or down to the Dead Sea, Masada, and there's this big sign, Saddam Hussein Bridge, right there. And it's just one of those, it just looks creepy, because you know what he did. What?
Nadir.
What?
The guy.
What?
That's his name. The driver.
Yeah, Nadir. And he's on Facebook. He's my friend on Facebook now. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. He doesn't, and I upload all sorts of stuff about Hamas, and ISIS, and he doesn't like anything. I put a picture of my son at the beach. He's going, I like that one. I won't hear from him for a year. But anyway, so we have these gas masks. I'm like, pull over. He goes, I can't pull over on this road. I'm like, pull over. I can't pull over on this road. I'm like, dude, we just missed a sign. I wanted to make a U-turn, go back. I'm like, there's one more sign. And here it comes again. Saddam Hussein Bridge. He just goes, make it quickly. Make it quickly. And you got the little freeway divider, the metal, right, on the whatever, gizmos. And I'm like, everybody grab your gas mask. And we get in front of this sign. We all got a gas mask, and I kid you not, Karen's doing like this, and it looked like a Slipknot album cover. It was horrible. And if you've seen those freaks, right in smack Jerusalem.
Put it on Facebook one time, right?
Yeah, you saw it, right?
What is that?
What is what? Slipknot is a pagan band. Horrible band. And if you don't know what they look like, it's the problem of evil incarnate. If I go gas mask, maybe we can find it. We're having way too much fun right now. No.
It's probably on your computer somewhere, right?
It's being filmed, isn't it?
Hey, we're at the end of the semester. I really don't care. Yes, it is being filmed. It's on the Facebook somewhere. All right. In any event, when the Palestinian Christians, notice, not Jews, Palestinian Christians near Bethlehem on Monday urged Pope Francis to speak up against Israel, an Israeli decision to build its controversial separation barrier, we must ask, why was it built in the first place, right? If you ask people on the inside of Bethlehem, why is this wall built? Because after all, walls are supposed to come down, right? Great Wall of China, and you got, the walls of Germany. They're supposed to come down, let's love each other. Can't erect walls, and that's what Israel's doing. Look, the occupation must come to an end, right? We're treated as secondary citizens. Be that as it may, whatever your position is on that, Israel is where you have most freedom of speech and humanitarian rights. You can serve in the Knesset being an Arab, and so forth. Now let me tell you, first time I went into Bethlehem, and I got to get into the mind of this gentleman that was driving us. We're driving in, not where most people will go, like buses and tourists. No, we're going through a checkpoint where there's like one IDF. He goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, and boom, we go in, and he hangs a quick right. And we're literally licking this wall. We're right on the inside of that wall. There's Hamas, graffiti, Stars of David crossed out, and this street was just filled with debris. I'm looking going, wait a second. Cars don't even go here. It's just like newspapers, just trashy. Talk about third world. And yes, that wall put him right back into the 30s. The 1930s, I'm saying, economically. You'll see buses and vans there that you'll be like, wow. You still have those type of buses running around? Hardcore, like Egyptian, Iranian type of Muslims. I mean, the whole outfit in canes walking across the street. It's a trip. And everybody in there feels like they're in prison. That driver had gotten into a bar fight when he was younger. And just like in Europe, they call it a point on your record. You have a point on your record. You have 1 point in Bethlehem. Bar fight, he can't work in Israel. So he's now stuck inside of Bethlehem just because he has a criminal record, right? That would be like making an illegal U-turn here and you're stuck in Barstow.
He was your driver? How did you get to the other places?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
He's allowed to come out and grab me and go right back in. But he can't work inside of Israel. So a Jewish taxi took me to the border, but he can't enter because the car's going to get stoned. And then this van comes and picks us up and takes me and my friend. In any event, this was really, understand the animosity and what's going on politically. Forget religion for a while, right? We're in this car, and I'm starting to get a little nervous, a little aggro. So I'm looking, I'm like, is this the right way, right? I'm looking at the guy in the back, and my friend's not going to do anything. So honestly, I'm thinking, okay, we're getting further and further away from the checkpoint where IDF is. I can't even open the doors if I want to. There's not that much room to open the door and try to get out and run back. So I'm like, this is right when, what is it, that Marine had his head cut off on TV? What year? 2009, I think it was? Maybe, I don't know. And so all this stuff's going through my mind. I'm first time in Bethlehem. Nobody part of the church group that I was with, well, we're not going to go there because that's all Catholic stuff. No, that's where Jesus was born. That's why I'm going. So I went on my day off. And the further we go, it looks like a dead end, and he can only make a left. So that's when I says, all right, I got to ask you a question. What? When you get down there and make a left, I go, is that where your friends are waiting with machetes or guns? Which is it? Had he answered it the wrong way, I would have taken his head, bashed it in the steering wheel as many times as I could, knocked out the back window, and ran back. That's what was going through my mind. I'm being honest with you. So he looks at me like I'm insane. Pulls out his cross. He goes, I'm a Christian. He was a Palestinian or an Arab Christian. So I'm like, I got to call him out even more. I go, that means nothing. Madonna wears that as fashion. Are you really Christian? Yeah. Well, lighten up on the Jews. Jesus was a Jew. He goes, that's different. That's when I knew he was genuine. We get closer to that, straight down there, he makes a left, and it's just like gas station, Condo's gas station. Condo's the first guy who purchased the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? I see him, Condo's just like, I go, well, first, before you take me to the church, I want to find Condo's home. He goes, I know Condo. Condo is the guy who purchased the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? I want to find his home or his family or something. Took me straight up there. I'm like, are you Count? No, Condo's no longer here. I'm his son, and the guy's like super old. I got to walk with him a little bit. They owned the whole, half the street of buildings there, and little apartments, and because they had some money back in the day, and then fence over here with just barbed wire. Very interesting. So after Condo, we left that family's house, and we're cruising around Bethlehem. I got to know this guy. It was almost like watching The Jackal. Remember that old movie, The Jackal? Bruce Willis, understanding the IRA, Irish Republican mindset. And you just go, man, if I lived there, who knows if I wasn't saved? I'd probably sign up for these guys. Of course, they would say that they are saved because it goes between Protestants and Catholics, right? So, having said that, I started asking him good questions. I'm like, what is it like then to be here? He goes, you know what? It's like I'm in prison. I got in a fight. I got, marked on my record, and I can't work in Israel right now, so I'm stuck in here. He drives around. This is like prison, don't you see? I'm like, all right, get the other side of the argument, and it was very intense. He goes, you want to know why we do this? I'm like, whoa, wait a second, suicide bomber. I go, no, why do you do this? And the guy in the back is laughing, and he's like, because IDF bombed my brother's house and killed him. I go, wait a second. What did he do for them to fly in and blow up your brother's house? I mean, well, literally, this kick back, right? And have to be kind of bold, too, because you never know. He says, well, you know what? That's irrelevant. They blew up the house, killed him and his kids. And so my other brother, before the wall was built, walked in and blew up a school bus and killed like 30 Jewish kids. I says, I see. Well, I tell you what, I have friends in the IDF, and they're saying that suicide bombings are down by like 98% since that wall was built. Do you see the logic at least? I mean, look what you just told me. He's like, that's not true. I go, all right, well, I tell you what, life for you really does stink, you know? Life for them is better because of the wall. And what do? Do you tear down the wall? Now you got schools blown up again? Here's what they said, the Palestinian Christians. We cry to you, cry to your holiness with a feeling of despair, choice of words, and urgency. Urgency, time is of the essence. Almost like doing a Bible study, right? In order to keep alive our hope that justice and peace, no justice or peace unless the wall comes down. Will this bring peace or suicide bombings, right? It's still possible. Send an open letter from the Christians at Beit Jala, a town near the West Bank city of Bethlehem. Quote, the Israeli military occupation, see, they don't belong there. Notice the choice of words, that has already started building the famous wall annexing Palestinian land is separating Bethlehem as well as other regions from Jerusalem and our holy places, it said. The letter came as Israel President Shimon Peres was due to arrive in Italy on a 3-day visit during which he would meet Pope Francis. When we were there, weren't they building a stage in Nazareth for the Pope was going to come in? When the Pope flies into Israel, they will like do construction just for his speech. You know, like stairs and helicopter lands here. That's crazy. We respectfully, quote, ask you to make use of this meeting to pass a strong message regarding the people of Palestine, and particularly the case of Beit Jala's Commission land, it said. All right, what do you do with that? Do you see that there's ethics involved here? Do you see that they feel, as not just Muslims, but Palestinian Christians, feel like they are secondary citizens? Listen, I'm so pro-Israel, I say it all the time, I can't even say see straight. But that is also because of theological beliefs. If I was not a believer, if you were not a believer, what would you say about the Middle East? I'll tell you what most of you would have said. If you had a drinking career back in the day, nuke the Middle East, put up a flag. All of them. Jews, were the anti-Semitic? I said all of them. It's just ruckus among us. We don't need hummus among us. End it. That's a joke, hummus among us. So, having said that, because our position on eschatology, right? Israel is our friend. Were it not for your eschatological views, you wouldn't care as much. Now, I'll tell you what. Let's say dispensational theology is completely wrong because it's newer. As if new is false. But yet, I will always say that old is gold. If replacement theology or supersessionism is what we believed here, if you know these terms, God has turned his back on Israel, he's done with it, you are the church of God, you are the Jews. God's done with the Jews, he's done with Israel. It's all over. Book of Revelation, no, not much there, except for the second coming, etc. Do you see politically how Israel would be more unsafe? So even if it were the case that dispensationalism was false, right? Our end times way of thinking, Kayla, right? God's not done with this. Well, Orthodox would say God is not done with Israel, but what's going on right now certainly has no place, neither here nor there. That's where you must separate prophetically eschatology from the secular state of Israel. Armies make mistakes all of the time. And you have to understand, from the Jewish mindset, whether supersessionism, dispensationalism is true or false. You have to understand that the Israeli situation is one of those where we all agree that God is not done with them, right?
Yeah.
And what was it that Paul says? They've been blinded for a season, right? If you buy the idea that the Messianic Jewish movement is partly their eyes are starting to see, great. There just aren't that many of them anymore. And a lot of the Messianic Jews go back to their old ways, which is very interesting. And sometimes it's not very healthy. You know, we end up hanging out more in a synagogue than in a church, you know. But anyway, lot more we could say on that point. Let me move on here so you can have the bigger screen, and I'll hide the little one. I'm going to move on from that letter. All right. Ethics. Not Israel. Israelology. Israelology. By the way, you want to read a good book? Fruchtenbaum. He's a Messianic Jew. He wrote a book called The Missing Link in Systematic Theology. Another one called Israelology. Very interesting stuff. If you're interested in, you know, the temple and prophecy and all this stuff, he's sort of like the more like the Messianic Jewish Paul of the day. He was even kicked out of Israel for a number of years because he was so Messianic and moved to Texas. Now he's allowed access again. This guy's hardcore. He's in our video, The Dead Sea Scrolls, Who is Jesus? All right. Thus far, how would you answer the question, why be moral? We don't have time to go around the room. So I'm going to say, answer, the Scripture demands us to live according to objective morality flowing from the nature of God. As such, we are created in the image of God, and we ought to reflect a morally virtuous life, ultimately pleasing and honoring our Maker, and of course, loving our neighbor, right? Boy, do we fall short there. But this is what we ought to strive for. Okay? So don't be hating, Steve. Don't be hating. Just joking. Question 2. How is it, or how are ethics important in fields such as business, medicine, and politics? Well, I just mentioned politics in Israel. Religion, certainly coupled. What about business? Medicine. Physician-assisted suicide, human cloning, in vitro fertilization, euthanatos, right? Causing death, allowing death to occur. What are the differences there? What about business? Oftentimes you use the illustration using Enron, right? They were taught relativism, more relativism at Harvard, I'm just saying, the higher-ups, and then they get to Wall Street, and they just took it over, left with all this money, and now we want to throw them in jail. Why? Survival of the fittest in economic business sense terms. Why prosecute them? They just acted upon what they knew, which was relativism, which is exactly what Bundy did to other people. Ted Bundy. They did it economically. He did it to another person or persons. It didn't stop there. He had to eat his victims too. So business, medicine, politics, it's everywhere. And ideas govern the world or throws it into chaos, according to Comte, father of French sociology. All right, the answer. What we are as Christians ought to be evident in all posts of life. We do not let our surrounding situation or place determine what rightness truly is. We are to live the Sermon on the Mount in all places and at all times. And I know that's a big call in a hostile world. To live the good, therefore, is applicable in business life, including the political realm. Preferably, Christians may consider being statesmen, living by biblical principles, as opposed to being politicians. I said statesmen, living according to biblical principles, versus calling yourself a politician, which is just about the party. Doesn't matter what Pelosi does or Obama does. It's all about the party, because we've got to keep this thing going, which is exactly where the Democrats are at right now. So, whom in general seek the vote and are persuaded and are not persuaded by winds of popular opinion and their polls. In medicine, Christian ethics is critical since medicine is, for the most part, tied to what? Bioethics. Drugs are drugs, right? And by the way, Krista, some of the posts that you were up there, did you get your flu shot? And there's like, a broccoli drink or whatever, you know what I mean? My wife and I do the same thing. So Corey, you're not alone. I was the last convert of the family, you know what I mean? Not vegan, but I'm not going to eat the meat that has all the hormones. I ain't going to drink all that junk. My son does not get his flu shots, and he's healthier than most people in this room,
Why, by the time they make the flu shot,
Mhm.
it's for last year's flu.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have any efficacy for this year's flu, because the flu is a virus, which means change, virus. Continually changing more.
It mutates by the time I get it.
Yeah, it doesn't have any effect.
And you know what? Sometimes I'm worried about not giving him vaccination. But you know what? When you read about how some of these vaccines are made, I mean, you think about monkey fever, right? Let's take this virus, I'm going to shoot it into a monkey, and once it dies, there's all this pulp fiction going on inside of its body. I'm going to cut the monkey open, scrape out the pulp, put it in the grinder, add some chlorine so it's nice and clear, and shoot that right into my kid. You got to be kidding me.
Well, I think the hepatitis one is the worst. That's a bloodborne illness. The bloodborne illness is...
The bloodworm?
Bloodborne.
Okay.
Bloodborne illness.
Bloodborne illness.
I don't want to get into it too much.
Yes.
There are ways to catch illnesses.
Mhm.
Bloodborne illnesses like AIDS and hepatitis,
Mm-hmm.
they're in every cell. If they're bloodborne, they're in your, the life is in the blood, it says in the
Right.
illness, right?
Right.
So if you're bloodborne illnesses, if you have blood, it's everywhere. It's not curable. It's taken over your body. And so this hepatitis vaccine, it's for blood. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, good. I'm not alone. I'm not alone.
What were they thinking?
And I'll tell you one thing. The flu shots that the kids are getting here in America, I didn't get those as a kid. I never had measles. I never had any of the, chicken pox. I've had none of those. The only thing I had as a kid, you know what that was? It was croup.
Oh, yeah. That really bad cough.
It was just a bad cough.
Yeah.
And my mom would put on a boiling pot of water and a towel over it, and I was over it within a few hours. Oh, and I almost died one time because I hit my head. I was such an active kid that my mom and dad would tie belts onto my tennis shoes. I'm a year old. See this when I smile? See this bump here? That's not a wrinkle. Almost killed me. So she could hear wherever I'm at in the house. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. You just hear me running around with these bells. I figured out, I was a year old, I figured out to take off the bells off both of my little white shoes. And my dad had just waxed this parquet floor. I don't know what this has to do with ethics. It's almost the last class. So, popularly
Honoring your
patient.
parents.
Honoring my parents. There you go. So I picked off the bells. And as I'm walking on the slippery floor, we had this huge living room, probably the size of this entire room, and plants along the way, because I've seen pictures, not like I remember. And the floor was waxed. My mom's watering the flowers. As I'm walking in, all she heard was this. Boom. I guess I slammed right into the corner of the TV. And my mom, young, dumb, and some, puts me to bed for my nap. 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Well, Magnus must be awfully sleepy.
Yeah.
She was 18. Walks in there and grabs me, and I was just a rag doll like jelly. Had she not woken me up, I would have died. So I've always had this little, I don't know what you call it. Swedish, we call it brusque. I don't know what you just say that is in English. But in any event, honor your father, yes, and mother. So there we go. It's all tied to medicine and Ebola. Nobody knows what's going on with Ebola, huh? Ebola is the greatest political discussion because it keeps our eyes off of what's happening in Iraq. Keep that in mind. Question 3. What is the difference between deontological and teleological systems of ethics? Do we know that? Well, yes, you've written on it. Deontological ethics focuses primarily on the inherently good in that there exists a core morality, an objective, unchanging ethic that is universal. Teleological is more duty-centered, is it not? Or is it end-centered? Karen, you had a nice phrase in your paper.
I did?
Yep. You remember?
No.
Kayla, you remember. It was, I think both of you did. Deontological ethics is it duty-based? Teleological ethics, is that duty-based, Corey? Come on, man, you guys have taken Christian ethics. Reading between these longer definitions.
Yeah, it is, well, your duty to God, deontological.
That's right.
Right?
But say what?
Deontological is your duty to God. You have a duty.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is just results. whatever.
Results-centered. There you go.
For the most people,
There you go.
and that whole
Yeah.
thing. Whatever that-
Now, Kayla, you remember writing on your paper? Because you did have it in your paper. Stressing the outcome of results and not core principles a priori. What's a priori? Philosophy class. A priori. Who's in the philosophy class? You two. A priori, prior to, right? A posteriori, after the fact. A posteriori, prior to, a priori, prior to the facts. A posteriori, after looking at the facts. All right. Moving on. Question 4. What is the unifying theme of Old Testament ethics? Kill Canaanites, or what is it? Well, it's not that. Answer is holiness, right? We are to live a holy life as being set apart from the world, and this is to be lived out in all eras of life, and thus not compartmentalizing holiness, being holy on Sunday.
Not that we have a moral lawgiver who's in the word accountable.
Well, that's part of that, because where do you get the idea of holiness from unless there is a holy lawgiver, right? 10 Commandments in context. What's the role of the Holy Spirit in Christian ethics? This is where things get really rosy and fuzzy for many. The Holy Spirit is not only responsible salvifically, saving us, but also sanctifies the believer, helping Christians to grow, mature, including living the Christian moral life. Thus, we are to walk in the Spirit, allowing the Holy Spirit to transform the believer and ultimately work in her and through her something man cannot do alone. Do you notice here how I was like totally politically correct? Ultimately work in her and through her something man cannot do alone. All right, never mind. Bad joke, I guess. What is the central virtue of Christian ethics?
The morality is from God's character. Love.
The central virtue.
Love God. Love
Be guided by the Holy Spirit.
So simple, huh?
Agape.
And I had it spinning after reading that book. It's love. All you need is love, right? We are to love our neighbor, and from this moral command follows the others, right?
Situation is
Oh,
Yeah, that's important.
graded absolutism coupled with situation-graded absolutism. There we go. All right. From a pro-life perspective, the Christian is much more inclusive concerning who belongs in the human community. Have you noticed that? Like when we say love your neighbor, and Christians will oftentimes, non-believers will say, listen, you work at one of those pro-life agencies, right? Which is awesome. People will say things like, you know what, you guys are so narrow-minded, you're pro-death when it comes to capital punishment, you're pro-life when it comes to abortion, you guys are all dizzy, right? You hear stuff like that. And of course, we are so exclusive in our Christian views of salvation, true? Right? Versus being pluralistically involved in embracing all the religions of the world. What this slide is saying, that's why I'm stopping, because I didn't hear somebody go, amen, that's a good one. So I'm going to spend time on this slide. Here's why. When we say love your neighbor, it includes the unborn for the believer. For the unbeliever, when they're calling us intolerant, narrow-minded, pro-lifers, you guys are just dizzy, etc., etc., you can just say, no, listen to me. You, pro-choice or pro-death advocate, whatever you want to call it, they are really pro-death. It's a culture of death. You're pro-death. You're not pro-life. What's the opposite of life? It's death. So you're pro-death. But you're not going to make any friends that way, right? That's why I have no friends. I'm joking. It's like when they took my aunt-in-law, and they all got together and go, pull the plug, right? And come home and go, and so-and-so passed away at noon today. I go, no, she didn't. You guys all killed her. And I walked into the next room. Oh, Nick. Would have to be so bold. It's true. You did. Second opinion? No. And then they called Dr. Lutsky. He says, she could have been saved. Ooh.
Is that right?
Kid you not.
I'm so sorry. That's really...
Kid you not. So Nick was right again. Nick's always right. You see? I got to bring that up again and say, see, told you so. All of our organs have shut down in the body. All of them? How do you know? All of them? Every single one of them?
That's
How long did she have stomach pain? Oh, she says, for years. Did she see a doctor? No. Well, maybe she should have. Maybe now get her second opinion. But where did this happen? Fountain Valley. What do you expect in Fountain Valley? All right. Hopefully, yeah, nice place to live, though. It's a horrible place to die. I'll tell you that. But the point here is when you're talking to a pro-choicer, you can say stuff like this. Listen, I am more broad and open-minded than you, which is the language that the other side will use. You're so narrow-minded, Craig. Can't you just shut up about your faith and your pro-life position? Stop it. Right? Craig's like, what? So you can just say, you are narrow-minded because I include the unborn as members of society. You exclude them. Very good argument. So we love our unborn, who is also our neighbor. Again, location has no bearing on who you are. Question 7. How would you define natural law? Well, we don't have time for you to do that. So there exist moral truths or principles evident in nature and is common and or accessible to all of mankind. Thus, they are universal, regardless of you knowing or liking it and so forth. Truth is truth, and it's not dependent on anybody else. That's the truth. Natural law as such is grounded in general revelation, for example, conscience. All right? Question 8. What is the biblical view of the pursuit of one's self-interest?
Crucifixion.
I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it my way, Sinatra says. What is it? These are good questions, right? We are to pursue God's interest. We are to deny ourselves and pick up a cross daily and follow Christ. We put others before us. Boy, we sure do that a lot, don't we? What do you feel like eating? Yeah, Taco Bell again. Come on, let's at least go to Del Taco, right? We put others before us and seek to die, right? And forget anniversary. In doing so, our self-interest will find its true meaning. It's secondary, if anything at all. Moreover, we already do love ourselves, including our own self-interest, yet we are to love our neighbors, the greatest commandment. Finally, husbands are to love their wives as Christ, as Christ loved and died for it. There's a mutual thing there, and I was talking to CCU today, understanding the certificate of biblical counseling that you're going to pursue, which is great stuff, and you're going to hear, if you ever do any counseling, and I feel sorry for your future pastor because you'll be better at counseling than he will ever be, because they just shoot off Bible verses, and you'll have some good training there, so I'm glad to hear it. Just too bad that you're not going to be in my classes, because I don't teach anything that has to do with biblical counseling. I would be a bad counselor. What's wrong, sir? Could you pray for me? Yes. Next. What's going on? Not pastor material. You know, Ergen Cantor shared that one time. I kid you not. He was a pastor at some Baptist church. He walked up seriously, like this, like after, like Chuck Smith would stand there, you know, back in the day at the door. Yeah. People come up, talk to him, and you know, Ebola and everything, just shaking everybody's hand and all coughing on him. Everybody's gonna hug him. Stand up, Steve. Ergen Cantor would be like this. Yeah, great message. Yeah, I know. Next. and he was like, not really kidding. He was like, that's when I knew I shouldn't be a pastor. I often joke about that. I've been an assistant pastor, but it's just, you know, that's for other people, I think, that really are truly called to that. Does that mean my ordination was of man? Ooh. Or maybe the Greek is correct in that pastor-teacher, there is no distinction. Ooh. You guys figure that out. How does utilitarianism determine right and wrong? Give some examples. I almost choking there myself. The teleological ethics of Mill, John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism, is based on the result or outcome as opposed to a preceding absolute moral duty. Makes sense, right? Because you've read about these things. This is sort of to recapture where you've been. In business, more often than not, the focus is often on the end, profit, regardless of the means. Lying, manipulative, a proposed profit, tainted investment. Boy, I've been there, done that. That's exactly how secular business does it. What did that such and such run you? Oh, X amount. Hey, can you give me a better deal? I need a discount on that. Did you still pay that for that? Yeah. In fact, they should charge you more for asking. Well, that's the business, right? Business world. A lot of it, not all of them. Wall Street is also a good example. Like the stock market's typical goal is to produce the greatest economic good for the majority of the investors. Not the hoi polloi. All right, explain categorical imperative. Do we know what the categorical imperative is? No? Although circumstances differ in people's lives, one's moral obligation and duty ought not to change. Hence, what is objectively moral is true for all rational beings. Thank you, Aristotle. Okay, question 11. What is the appeal of relativism? What are its shortcomings? It appeals, what is this? Its appeals are tolerance and seeming open-mindedness. At first, relativism seems very inclusive and fair and non-judgmental. As a system, it eliminates any objective moral law and thereby leaves man free and not accountable at all to any moral lawgiver, God, you name it. Autonomy, you alone, then, is the God of relativism, and that really, self-interest is purely grounded in relativism. It's not putting other people before you. If acted upon, right, you got antinomianism. Whatever I want to do, whatever pleases me is what I'm going to run for. On a different note, if one truly affirms moral relativism, then morality is no more than an imaginary world. I spoke about that last week. It's just to pretend that there are moral laws even though there aren't any. So it's sort of like creating a world of illusion. Let's pretend that there are moral laws even though there aren't any, and let's just walk through life like it's just one bad soap opera with a bunch of pretending laws which really aims at our survival, right? Which means what? Morality doesn't exist. It's reduced to what's socially advantageous for the Homo sapiens, the furtherance of our species. Because after all, we're animals, and since when did animals have rights? Or animal rights on their own. Funny, we're humans, and we give animals animal rights. We give them almost more rights than we do to humans. All backwards. But yet, wait a second, we're animals too, so what happened? Go figure. Okay, moving on then. That was a good argument. I never thought about that one before. See? You learn something when you teach this stuff. Okay, we got to move on, because we are not out of time. 7 elements for making moral decisions and applying these. What are they? 1, gather as many facts as you can. You can't gather all, but you can try to gather all the facts. Determine the ethical issues at hand. 3, what principles have bearing on the case. 4, list the alternatives. Shouldn't be this hard, but ethical systems of big decisions might be helpful. 5, compare the alternatives with the principles. Number 3, what are the principles bearing on this case? 6, compare the consequences. 7, make the right decision. All right, we talked about unqualified, conflicting, and graded absolutism. Let's blow through this fast as a recap, because really, situation ethics, stuff like that, yeah, you're going to come across that. It's mainly for you to read and understand, wow, there's some problems with situation ethics, but at the same time, appreciating what some of these ethicists have done to try to create a system apart from X, Y, and Z. All right? You try to do it apart from your worldview. So, in any event, do moral absolutes conflict? What would you do if you were hiding Jews in a home and the German Gestapo's banging on your door saying, are there any Jews here? You know, would you lie? Would you do this? 3 main schools of thought. Unqualified absolutism, conflicting absolutism, and graded absolutism. I'm a graded absolutist, and I'm proud of it. I think it makes more sense than the other 2. Maybe there's a 3rd alternative. If so, write your thesis on it, Corey. Because I'm all ears. There could be a 4th view. Yeah. Or 3B. Unqualified absolutism. Unqualified absolutism. Conflicting moral absolutes are only apparent. Now, what do we mean about that? Because you weren't here on that lecture. Conflicting absolutes. Always tell the truth, right? Don't lie. Thou shalt not kill. Okay. So I'm hiding Jews in my basement, right? The Gestapo show up. Any Jews in the home? I'm a good Jew, or I'm a good Christian, or I'm just a good atheist. But this is not for the atheists. It's for Judeo-Christians only. Because Muslims can lie. They can deceive and become your friend until they cut your head off, right? Once they have the right moment. And Allah too, he lies, but he lies perfectly because he's perfect. Figure that one out. So, are you supposed to tell the truth to the Nazis? Yeah, I got 35 Jews upstairs. Because God wants you to speak the truth, always. Right? Yes, maybe, no, okay. If you lie, no, there's no Jews upstairs. You feel guilty. If you tell the truth, they will die. Because of you. Because you told the truth, they die. The truth will set you free. No, in that case, the truth will lead you to Auschwitz. Right? So what do? That's the problem here. Unqualified absolutism says conflicting moral absolutes are only apparent. All right? Maybe there's even a third alternative, such as shooting the Nazis. Okay, well, good luck. You know, it's like this. I'm all for guns in this country. You know, I am all for it, and I can't wait to get more. However, you know, I have friends who have like multiple AR-15s. I show up, you know, in Corona, and you're talking mags, hundreds, and the plates just flying all over the place. Stuff that's not really ethically within the law. I don't own them. Everything I have, completely legal. Kid you not. Would I like to have one of those 100 mags? Yeah. I'd like to have 2 coils on one. That'd be awesome. But I can't. But the mentality of this militia mentality that is hardcore conservative, and very much so within Christian realms, right, is what are we going to do, honestly, if the U.S. government started behaving like Nazi Germany and came to get your guns? Okay, so they come with your guns. What are you going to do? You're going to blow up the first 2 guys, and then comes a tank. You blow that thing up with what? A bazooka? And then it just comes, you know, 500 people just surrounding your house. You're going to run out of bullets eventually. Well, you know what the answer is? They haven't thought about this. It's like, well, I'll just go out with a bang. Yeah, you will go out with a bang. Well, you know, what about people organize and we do this together and you know, we know they're coming to Corey's house, or Corey 5 minutes before goes to Craig's house and me. Well, ultimately we're going to run out. It's too big of a country. You know, it's too strong militarily. So they could do that. And all we could do, or what some will do, is fight against it. Have to be careful what I'm saying here. All right. Conflicting moral absolutes are only apparent. Thus, conflicting absolutes are not real. Sin is always avoidable. So whether you tell the truth, well, I don't know what you should do. Tell the truth? No, you can't. I mean, you can't lie, right? And you can't let them die. So figure it out.
We don't lie because, you know, lying's a sin.
Lying is a
You
sin.
don't sin against God, so you don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
But then you just say, well, God will take care of it. That's the way
You don't know the enemy the truth.
God will take care of it. It's not my problem. I didn't sin. Right?
Sinning.
That's kind of it.
Look who believes this view. St. Augustine, Immanuel Kant,
You wrote 2 books on it, right? Augustine?
Anabaptists. That's interesting. I would say not all Anabaptists, because I think after a course like this, reading this type of stuff, they might go, wait a second. But they're still good. Now look, the unconflicting absolutist is very well-meaning. He really wants to stick to Scripture. You understand that? No, what's black is black, what's white is white. I'm not a guy who likes gray. You know what I mean? I really don't. Like, you know, there's always a gray area. No, there's not always a gray area. Truth and false, right? Black and white. I get that. But when I came across great absolutism as a young kid, it solved a lot of problems. Conflicting absolutism. Wait a second. Yeah. Conflicting absolutism. Moral absolutes do actually conflict, so you're guilty no matter what you do, right? So when the two conflict, since both cannot be fulfilled, you can't be lying, right? I mean, you can't lie and save lives. You can't tell the truth and save lives. Sin is inevitable, no matter what. So it's sort of like this. No matter what, you just, listen, you live in a fallen world, you're guilty. But thank God he died for our sins. It's just unfair. Just the world's terrible like that. So it's a fallen world. You know the law. Whatever the circumstance, you're guilty, choosing the lesser of 2 evils. So, you know, I'm going to lie. There are no Jews upstairs. It's better than having 35 Jews killed. So, well, you chose the lesser of 2 evils, you're still guilty. All right. Great absolutism. Where moral absolutes do conflict, so here we admit that they do conflict, this view. One chooses the lesser of 2. One does not choose the lesser of 2 evils, but chooses the greater of 2 possible goods. So 2 possible goods in this sense would be truth-telling and life-preserving. Those are 2 goods, and they're absolutes. All right? This is not centered on end ethics or teleological ethics. but is duty-centered. What's the difference? If and when such conflicts occurs, one's highest obligation is to seek the highest good in doing the greater good. For example, saving 35 Jewish folks is probably better than telling an evil Nazi the truth, and 35 of them are now gone, or lying, right? I'm going to lie to the Nazis. That would be a lesser evil, right, than having them killed. If we switch the table, and some would say, that's just semantics, that's philosophy, you guys are dizzy, what would be the greater good? Truth-telling or saving 35 people? Probably. Because there's 35 folks up there that have the image of God stamped upon them, right?
But before God, He will judge at the end to the person that made the decision, then He will make the decision on...
Right. Obviously, He is the judge, yeah. We're just stuck here trying to figure out these dilemmas, you know. Because this is a world. And I would say there are definitely times when these things conflict. How are we supposed to think about these things? What do we do? Reformation thinkers mainly go with great absolutism. Are they merely apparent and not real? While sin is sin, will God hold man responsible for holding two absolutes that he can't keep? I don't think so. Or is it that they never conflict? Positive aspects of unqualified absolutism, it's based on God's immutability. It seeks to focus on rule versus end results. The end does not justify the means. Unqualified absolutism seeks to thrust in the providence of God. It suggests also that there is always a way to avoid sin. Negative aspects. It assumes a false dualistic hierarchy. Augustine's idea of sins of the soul being greater than the sins of the body. I don't believe that for a minute. Sins of the soul, I don't believe, are greater than the sins of the body. Image of God is stamped on both your natures. Because when God created man, He says it is good. So one is not better than the other. Also, I think it's borderline Gnosticism. We have this very low view of the flesh. Yeah, it's fallen, but is your spirit fallen too? You have a perfect spirit and imperfect flesh? That's heresy. No. Both are imperfect. And your spirit was dead, therefore imperfect, because the Holy Spirit had to sort of what? Born again. Which is, and what makes you, a human being, is exactly what you are. If an angel took on fleshly form, would he be just angel? No. If Christ took on a human form, He's not just Christ like He was before. He is now the God-man, adding on a second nature. You already have two natures. You're made of parts. God is not made of parts. He's simple. You're made of parts. So your whole being is what's redeemed here. So when we say here that you have a false dualistic hierarchy, the sins of the soul is greater than the sins of the body. You could almost call his dualistic hierarchy graded, graded view of sin in that sense. And some sins are greater than others. I believe in that. I would say that to blaspheme the name of God is worse than stealing a dentine, chewing gum. Or, to rape somebody and killing them is the same as cheating the IRS. Not the same. Yes, it's all sin to God. All of it's sin. But some are greater than others. If not, if there are no greater absolutes or greater moral ways of thinking, and say a hierarchy of absolutes, just like a hierarchy of sins. Now, I'm not going to be the guy that sits down and I'm going to write down every sin and go, that's probably number 41, this one's 49. No, we can't do that. But just on its face, right, we could probably agree that stealing is not the same as murdering. I didn't say killing. There's a difference between killing and murder. Very big difference. All right, lost my train of thought on that. For one, it seems counterintuitive to say that lying, sins of the soul, is worse than rape. That's the physical one, right? Sins against another body and one's own. Oh, that's what I was going to say. When Jesus says, when He was asked, what is the greatest commandment? He says, I give you the greater commandment. If He gives you a greater commandment, there must be lesser ones. The logic is very, very simple there. All right, I'm not going to get into Exodus 1:15 through 21. I'm not going to get into Joshua and explain unqualified anymore. This is interesting, though. According to Augustine, he defines a lie as an intentional falsehood. Well, no joke. If so, then mere acts are intrinsically evil, apart from any motive or any intention, including accidental injury. A little bit of a problem. Is there a moral dilemma in the case of lying or permitting murder? This is an important slide. Unqualified absolutists would say no. The only thing required is to tell the truth. Thus, the killer is responsible for what he does with that truth. Information that he received, problem. There also seems to be a duty for us to do all we can to preserve or save innocent lives, including pro-life, including active euthanasia, right? And even in cases of passive euthanasia, allowing death to occur, causing death to occur. All right, I'm not going to get into conflicting too much, but I will spend some time on graded, and then we have to move even faster. Abraham and Isaac, here we see real more conflict. God said, kill your son. Yet from God's nature flows, thou shalt not kill. What's going on here? Why should God command Abraham to go against God's own law? Why demand Abraham to sin? Interesting. Surely Abraham was set on carrying through with this murder, since he expected God would have had to raise Isaac from the dead. We have that later on in Hebrews 11:19, right? Abraham remembered that he would bless his seed Isaac, including land. It would seem that that no guilt would be imputed upon Abraham when God commands it. But does God command evil to sin unjustly? Taking out the Canaanites was just, but taking out his own son Isaac, is that justice? First of all, it didn't happen. So he said it, but he knew Abraham was not going to carry through. Do not lay a hand on the lad, the angel said. Stop them, right? Now your faith have been tested. What, is this a meaningless exercise? Forget about the exercise and go back. Thou shalt not kill. Hey, by the way, go kill your son Isaac. What's going on there? All right. God will not impute guilt for the unavoidable. Abraham didn't have to go up the mountain. Yet in Abraham's case, God commended Abraham to commit murder, or commanded, which seems unjustified. Was such a command justified merely for prophetic reasons? What's going on? Moreover, had Abraham been disobedient, he would also have fallen into sin. I'm not going to follow you, Lord. Well, now you're sinning against me. Thus, three main issues here. 1, thou shalt not kill. 2, kill your son. 3, to disobey is sin. Yet to obey would also be sin. So where is the correct answer? Boy, look what we do, right, when we get into all these things. Are we making it, so complicated? No one's making it complicated. It already is. We just discovered what's going on here. God commended him for his willingness to go through with the act. In all, we choose the greater of two possible goods in order to not commit evil. In fact, to not choose the greater is to sin mainly, because one ought to always keep the highest obligation. Daniel, including the 3 Hebrews, were commanded for being disobedient to the government. Interesting there, when you look at civil disobedience. The same is true of the Hebrew midwives in Exodus 1. And David and his men for breaking into the temple. What were they? They were eating the priestly bread, right? Why would you do that? Can't do that. Jesus says, yeah, they were hungry. Also, Jesus performing good deeds on the Sabbath. Was this breaking the law or doing what the law was calling us to do? He was fulfilling the law. All right? We are thus exempt in keeping the greater good, since we cannot keep both. So it's sort of like this. If I have the Nazis at my door, I got the Jews upstairs, they go, Nick, you got any juice? Right? I can't keep 2 moral absolutes in that moment. I can't stick with truth-telling, because they'll die, right? I can't preserve life and tell the truth at the same time. I got to give one up. So in keeping the greater of 2 possible goods, saving the Imago Dei stamped on 35 people upstairs, right? In doing so, I override the lesser, because I can't keep both. So I did commit sin. I override the lower because I can't keep both, because I am precisely obeying the greatest of two possible goods. It's not the lesser of two evils. I'm sticking with fulfilling the greatest of two possible goods. Yes?
What are the two possible goods in the story of Abraham? One is obeying God. What's the other one?
Oh. You guys, nobody caught that. What do you think it is, Corey? You know, Bible college? You guys have studied Scripture for a long time.
One is
What's
obeying
the
God,
big
and
one?
the other one is... I don't know, that's what you're saying there's two greater goods, so one is that we obey God, but I don't...
No, in the case of Nazi Germany it is. Go
Oh,
back.
okay, I'm sorry. All right.
It's unqualified absolutism.
Okay.
All right, now, come on,
No,
give it to me.
This is like...
Charles Kamazi, assistant professor of Christian ethics at Fordham University. By the way, that's where Francis Beckwith got his PhD, Fordham University. And let's see here, beyond popularization...
What's it?
I'm missing it. What?
The other guy. Nick's friend.
Nick's friend who?
Can't remember his name. There's Sam and the other guy. He's professor at Fordham anyway. David Wood. David Wood.
All right. David Woods, he teaches at Fordham? Oh, does he really? Well, he's studying there, I thought. Is he teaching there, Liz?
Well, I don't know if he is now, but he was.
He lives in the Bronx and teaches at Fordham? That's hardcore. All right, life and death issues. Let's move on. Bios, life, ethics, right conduct. We have to move really fast here. I'm not going to get into that case. We know what the Hippocratic Oath says. What is the Hippocratic Oath in regards to medicine? I have it here on slide whatever, because you're going to get this slide. All of it will be on Populi, so you can look up the Hippocratic Oath. In a nutshell, I have the ancient version here, which is 4th century BC, and we have the modern version here. I swear to fulfill the best of my ability and judgment this covenant. In short, life-preserving. That's what the doctors have to read and agree with, the Hippocratic Oath. Life-preserving, it's never the task of the doctor to end life, like Dr. Jack Kevorkian, Jack the Dripper, right? Remember? So when you're thinking about causing death, allowing death to occur, and these things, you keep in mind, since when is it the duty of the doctor to pull the plug? Or if I want to die, I want to commit suicide, but I don't want to, so I'm going to go to my Dr. Death, Dr. Jack Kevorkian, who's now dead, and I'm just going to have him give me a shot in the arm, and I'm going to die peacefully. And Dr. Jack says, listen, that's his way out. I'm going to honor it, and therefore we call him Dr. Death. No, it's not. He's going against the Hippocratic Oath. That's very important, and that's what nurses and doctors have to study. All right, Philadelphia doctor was found guilty Monday of murdering 3 babies born alive in an abortion clinic. Fox News confirms. Of course, you're not going to find this on CNN, are you? No, you're not. He was acquitted in the fourth baby's death and found guilty of involuntary manslaughter in the overdose death of an adult patient. So you got a really bad doctor here. Dr. Kermit Gosnell, 72, was convicted of first-degree murder and could face execution in the deaths of the 3 babies who authorities say were delivered alive and then killed with scissors at his grimy, nasty clinic. In case that became a flashpoint in the nation's debate over abortion. 72 years old, not knowing how many years he's been practicing, one wonders how many of these small-scale babies he's killed. Gosnell was cleared in the death of a 4th baby, who prosecutors say let out a soft whimper. The baby let out a soft whimper before he snipped its neck. Gosnell also found guilty of involuntary manslaughter in the drug overdose death of a patient who had undergone an abortion. That's malpractice for sure. Gosnell appeared hopeful before the verdict and calm afterwards. Jurors and lawyers on both sides were emotional. He's just sitting there. It's all good. The jury will return Tuesday to bear evidence on whether Gosnell should get the death penalty or not. What do you think? Death penalty, yes or no? Huh? Or perform an abortion on him?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or give him drugs so he can overdose?
Yeah,
What?
cut his neck and take a suck out his brain.
Oh dear. I don't know if I would want that brain tissue for Alzheimer's research though, you know. The DNA might duplicate
An eye
and
for an eye.
you end up with more abortion doctors. Who knows? All right. You can continue reading this article because it goes on, the article, and the article. According to Frank Beckwith, one of my former professors, he's now at Baylor, quote, something as morally arbitrary as a human being's location in a womb, right? You've heard the joke, right? Womb now becomes a tomb. You're safer walking down the streets of downtown LA, the garment district at night, than you're living in the average American womb. And there's a little bit of truth to that, if not a lot of truth to that. Beckwith says, quote, something as morally arbitrary as a human being's location, his or her being, in or out of the womb, cannot determine whether killing him or her is an unconscionable act of premeditated homicide or the exercise of a fundamental liberty. Yet something like that is the prevailing state of American law under Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton. Doe versus Bolton, Roe versus Wade, right? In 73 was Roe v. Wade. Whatever now happens to him, it will no longer be possible to pretend that abortion and infanticide are radically different acts or practices. He continues, unquote, if we are to condemn snipping the neck of a child delivered at, say, 24 or 26 weeks to kill him or her, how can we defend dismembering or poisoning a child in the womb at 26, 30, or even 34 weeks? You know, saline abortions is burning the child to death with a strong injection of salt. Isn't that what the Canaanites did? They'd have orgies in the field. You know, everybody sleeping with everybody. You'd have Molech standing there. You know, this big statue. They'd get him so glowing hot, they would put babies there. You know, to the god of harvest, and the baby would just sizzle to death while they're having sex in the field. You know what I mean? Those were the Canaanite hippie days. But we burn our own kids today. Saline abortions. Just calling a spade for spade. So, and even more fundamentally, if we are bearers of inviolable dignity and a basic right to life in virtue of our humanity, and not in virtue of accidental qualities such as age, size, or stage of development or condition of dependency, kid being dependent upon his mother, if, in other words, we believe in the fundamental equality of human beings, which is what we believe in, not just outside the womb, but inside the womb, how can a right to abortion, where abortion means now performing an act whose purpose is to cause fetal death, how could that be defended at all? Very good stuff. That's from First Things. He wrote an article in there. That was my professor at Greenleaf, one of them. Sharp guy, very good. He wrote that book, Politically Correct Death on Abortion. And that's a book you should get. Politically Correct Death on Abortion. Very, very good stuff. And of course, Stephen Schwartz's book, just called Abortion, I think is an orange cover. Depending on how we define abortion, its very definition will either win or lose the debate. Again, I mentioned here when I debated the ACLU, I got to go first, right? And that's the way it should be. I believe if you're debating abortion, gay rights, the existence of God, the reliability of the New Testament, Muslim apologists, always go first. Because you get to really frame the debate. I turned down a debate. What's his name? Skeptics Magazine.
Oh, that's...
Dr. Shermer.
Michael Shermer.
Michael Shermer. Teaches microbiology at... pause here for a second because you might end up doing some of this. At Occidental College. You know Obama studied there at Occidental College in L.A.? Yeah, he did. Accidental College? No, Occidental College. I was asked to come in there and speak to the Christians and the philosophy department for 3 hours of why Jesus is the only way to God. Do you think that was popular? No. But I loved it. Because you walk in like this, like 2 guns loaded, and you're like, bring it. Bring it. I don't trust in myself, Lord. Just help me out. I hope I remember what I'm going to say. You know what I mean? But it was fun. After that, and it went well, praise the Lord, I was asked to debate Shermer. Now, Shermer is the head of Skeptics Magazine, and since then, he's always on the Discovery Channel and Skeptics and weird stuff, and maybe, Jesus was an alien. I mean, you name it, and he's in the field. And if you say, that's just ridiculous, he'll just go, why not? Do you believe he's divine? Why not? You know what I mean? It's a great Socratic way of just throwing you in the hot seat. Why not? He does that all the time. So here's what's interesting. The Christian equivalent of Campus Crusade for Christ, they said, we want you to debate creation versus evolution. I says, nope. I said, does God exist? Which way does the evidence point? Now we can get into everything. No, they wanted to frame it, creation versus evolution. I go, if you name it that, not only is he going to destroy me on microbiology, I want to do philosophy, and now I'm limited. Do you understand now, recognizing what waters you should not tread on? Right? I says, creation, evolution, I mean, does God exist? I can give all these arguments for God's existence. Now, if he then brings up, I'm educating the Christians at this campus, saying, don't do it. I mean, if you want to do it, get Dwayne Gish out. You know what I mean? He'll destroy him. He's done debated that subject 400 times. I'm just not that interested in biology. It's not my field. You have to say stop somewhere. And you can do, things that demonstrate the farce of evolution, all that fancy stuff. Fossil record says no. All he's got to do is, look, I found a bird in Catalina Island. Here it is. And I haven't read about that bird because he found it 2 days ago. And I'm going to go, I have nothing to say. I'm losing. You with me? So, but philosophically, I think I could win. Scientifically, cosmology, teleology, moral, the traditional stuff coupled with new scientific support, anthropic principle, I think those things I could win. And then, if we named it, does God exist? Which way does the evidence point? / creation evolution, right? After I'm done giving a case, and he gets up and says, look, here is the latest discovery that we found on Galapagos Island last week, and Nick just doesn't know about it, of a missing link between Gu to Zu to U, right? That's the joke we make. Here it is. I could just say, so, that doesn't prove that God doesn't exist. And then I'll just quote a few Protestants, a few Catholic priests, a few Orthodox theologians who believe that God used evolution, and then I could just come back and end the debate this way. Dr. Shermer thinks that if evolution is true, God does not exist. That doesn't follow in a syllogism. At worst, it shows God being a monster for creating a bunch of misfits. But it doesn't follow deductively that God does not exist if Darwinian evolution is true. Do you see? I just won the debate. And all the students in there can just go, wow, those are good arguments for the existence of God, instead of talking about beaks and birds and bees and whatever, stuff that I'm not very interested in. Which is why I like philosophical apologetics. But you have to have evolution down as well. But not going up against the microbiologists. You got to be kidding me. That's not for me. Maybe if I studied a lot, 4 months, someone pays my salary, I'll stay at home and read it. Like William Lane Craig does. Gets paid to read and research and debate. Awesome. Awesome stuff. All right, here's the argument that I framed in the debate against the ACLU at Orange Coast College. Syllogism, it is wrong to commit unjustified homicide. 2, abortion is an act of unjustified homicide, therefore abortion is wrong. I reframed it a second way, something like, it is wrong to end the human entity that is temporally residing in its natural habitat. Abortion is an act that eliminates, I didn't say kill or murder, that eliminates the human entity. Therefore, abortion is wrong. Something like that. I had one simple way and one fancier way to double it. And then, of course, like the debater said, in support of my first premise, it is wrong to commit unjustified homicide. You don't have to say too much. It's premise 2 that you need to defend, that abortion is an act of unjustified homicide. There's the argument. I forgot it's there. All right, so that which temporally resides in the mother's womb is there, A, naturally, B, temporarily, and C, to remove this human entity involves what? 1, termination or ending of a life form. Well, it's not a human person. It's not a human being. Well, it's a human life form, right? It's a human DNA. There's no crocodile. Human life form. Yeah, but it doesn't have the right to live. Who are you to say? Why do you discriminate, right? Such termination was wrong due to A, which is it's natural. Moving on to pro-abortion mantra, right? It's like the Zen Buddhists, right? Hamana, hamana, hamana. It's my body. It's my choice. It's an extension of my body. It's my right. It's an argument from privacy. It's an economic argument. Starting at the bottom, economic argument, you don't kill for economic reasons. Same thing. If my wife is hooked up to a heart machine, respirator, and all of the above, and 2 IVs or 20 IVs, you can't put a price on pulling the plug. I want to keep her alive as long as I can. I'll put her out of her misery. How do you know she's miserable? And after medicine fails, what happened to 50 people getting around the bed every day and pray? Maybe God will heal her. Pull the plug. He's obviously not going to heal her. That we all know. You don't know nothing. All right? I'm very passionate about these things. Argument from privacy. What I do in private is my business. Really? I'm going to go home and do cocaine tonight. It's my business. No, it's your business. Isn't it? Commit adultery in private. Does that work? No. Does an act become morally right by doing it in private? No. Again, George Michael being caught at the public bathroom, right? Right? He got busted. How embarrassing. By taking the act of what happened there, and I'll spare you what happened. I'll spare you the details. By taking it into a hotel room in West Hollywood, does that make the act right or moral? No. It's still unnatural. Just like location, again, has no bearing on who you are. Remember, last week I walked into the restroom, I shut the door, I'm not a human being, and then I walked out, I go, I'm a human being. You can kill me in the bathroom, don't kill me outside of the bathroom. I don't change ontologically by moving over here or here. Location does not have bearing on who you are. It's my right. Remember the Declaration of Independence, right? We use this and they use it. We use it for pro-life, they use it for pro-choice. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To keep those in mind. To secure these rights, government is instituted by men, derived from the rule of law. Right? Okay, so my pursuit of happiness will be hindered if I have this child. Well, what about the unborn's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness? You're going to get rid of it or kill her because you want to go to college? Step up, have the baby, and go to college. Do both. You can't handle the truth. No, it's not just that. It's just they don't want it. It's an inconvenience. You know. What about rape and incest? Because we're not going to get into that too much. You know, hey, rape is wrong. Incest is wrong. It's definitely wrong. All the way around. Read some of the articles that pro-life journals and blogs have collected from women who were raped and aborted their babies. Watch their lives now. And I'm not talking about some, witch tattoo artist who doesn't care and does speed all day long. I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about the person who had an abortion, and every time she goes to the mall, she looks at all those strollers at the mall. She sees the clothing stores, the little babies, and they know, my kid would have been 3 this year. My kid would have been 13 this year. And there's something that happens in here when it happens here. And that is, you got rid of something natural, You have all these hormones, all this chemistry, your body's adjusting, boom! And you're like, no, rip it out. And your body's going, wait a second, what just happened? You didn't go through with the teleology, the purpose of human nature. Even if atheism were true, you're not going for it. You're not sticking to the rules of biology. You're eliminating it too early. In the case of rape and incest, listen, 2 wrongs don't make a right. And Eddie Tabash brought that up at OCC, at the college, in the debate. He goes, people on it, they want to he wants to throw women in prison who were raped. Stuff like that. For having an abortion. I'm like, must be another Nick here. And the point was, I said to him, because now I'm a guy in a suit, and of course, women, maybe there are girls, at OCC have had abortions? How am I going to answer that? How? Like Rush Limbaugh? How? Like Bush? How am I going to answer it? Like a male chauvinist? Because I don't have a clue. Rape and incest are loaded emotional terms. You have to be very careful how you deal with that. Because the passerbys are listening. And you can cause more harm. They need forgiveness, and they need to understand that they can have it. And it's okay. Let's move on and try to repair this thing. Have to remember that. Have to be sensitive, and sometimes we're not. So I said, before I even said, 2 wrongs don't make a right, what I did say is, look, I'm going to ask you this, because he's for abortion on demand. What's abortion on demand? Entire 9 months. Whenever you want. During the duration of the entire pregnancy. So I said, before I answer that question, and I just looked at him, and I'm doing a Q&A right now. You don't do that in debates, but I have to call him out. I said, if we just kept abortion legal in instances of rape and incest, I said, would you be happy and just get rid of all the other abortion laws? He goes, no! I go, why did you bring it up then? And then I said, what he's doing right now is he's appealing to the emotions in the audience. Do major psychologist, stuff like that. I just called him out. And because I had to. And then I tried to step it down a little bit, to tone it down, and just go, listen, these things are horrible. 2 wrongs don't make it right. You know, they really don't. All right, I had enough said about that. It's an extension of my body, really. Okay, if it's a woman carrying a male, since when did women carry penises, right? This is one of those. People start like, oh, that's funny, I can't believe this guy. Say it. Since when? That's not an extension of your body. You don't have 2 skeletons, you have 2 DNAs, you don't have blood types, and you certainly don't have male genitalia being a female. Those are just 3 quick things, so it's not an extension of your body. It's my choice. A choice that involves what?
Somebody else.
A choice that involves what? What are the final results of your choice? It's my body. Again, your body doesn't have 2 blood types, 2 bone marrows, different set of DNA, etc., etc. Privacy doesn't work. My right doesn't work because there are other people's rights. Economic argument doesn't work. Very simple. It's my body, my choice, not so. There's your body, and here's somebody else's body. And if that's a male, we really have a problem. Agnostic argument. This is a good one. I'm going to continue this on YouTube if you want euthanasia and you want the whatever, homosexuality, and we'll go hard. It'll be unpopular. Get them, or I'm not going to upload them. All right. The agnostic argument. Well, nobody knows when life begins. Well, wait a second. If that's true, all the more reason not to have an abortion, because you could be killing a human being. But here's what we do know. That's secondary. First, you just go, all the more reason not to have one. You follow that? Next one. Life begins when? Well, here's interesting. Let's just go. This comes from Beckwith. And I think Geisler has some of this in his book. We'll build a case and we'll refute other views later. When does life begin and what is the status of development? Beckwith 5051. Number of weeks. 2.5 weeks, you have blood cells and a heart. 2.5 weeks. 3.5, foundation for child's brain, spinal cord, and an entire nervous system is there. Eyes also begin to form. Well, it doesn't have real eyes yet, so let's just plug them out. Come on, right? 4.5 weeks. 3 parts of the brain present, eyes, ears, nasal organs, digestive tract, and gallbladder are forming. Yeah, but it's not a human being. Now, what is it? Crocodile? 5.5. Heartbeat essentially like that of an adult. You hear that? The heartbeat of 5.5 is essentially like that of an adult. A 1-inch miniature doll, gracefully formed arms and legs, an unmistakable human face. 6 week, brainwaves noted. From 6 week onward, suction and DNC abortions are common. What's DNC? Dilation and cartridge. Very nasty.
In 6 weeks, is this too gross? You're 2 weeks late for your period at 6 weeks. You don't, I mean, you just barely.
It was
left
2 weeks after your late period. Yeah, that's it.
Wait a minute, wasn't my period supposed to start? Maybe I should take it, I mean, that's where your head is at 6 weeks.
Yeah. Don't ever call me and tell me that, Steve, that you're late. I don't want to hear that again. It really warps me.
Just say love thy neighbor.
I have feelings too.
Just say love thy neighbor. Steve neighbor.
7th week, we got to move on. I don't have too much fun in here. 7th week, a well-proportioned small-scale baby, which is fetus, right, in Latin, small-scale baby. Brain configuration like an adult. Brain sends impulses that coordinate functions of other organs. So we're talking organs now. A nervous system well-developed. The heart beats steadily. Familiar external features and all internal organs of an adult. They're all present. If the area of the lips is stroked, he responds by bending his upper body to one side and making a quick backward motion with his hand. So like you do this, and he's like, get out of here. 8.5 weeks, eyelids and palms of hands sensitive to touch. If eyelids are stroked, the child squirms. If palm is stroked, the fingers close into a small fist, and that's when he hits the doctor. It goes straight out like this if you try to mess with him. 9th week, all structures completed, only development and growth from now on. So the basic inherent capacity, remember Stephen Schwartz, BIC, like the lighter, BIC, basic capacity is there. And just listen, it's on its own level of human development. It's no less human than you, than comparing Stan from me and my son from whoever's carrying a baby. We're at different levels of human development. We call that the human continuum argument, developed by Stephen Schwartz. I like that a lot. So, all structures completed, only development and growth from now on. Entire body sensitive to touch, except sides, back, and top of his head. Child moves spontaneously without being touched. 10 weeks to 38 weeks, D&E and saline abortions. The 10th week, threefold increase in nerve muscle connections. That's a lot. If forehead is touched, he can turn his head away. Arm movements, bending the elbow and wrists independently. Facial expressions on the 11th week, similar to his parents. Fingernails appear. Eyelids close over the eyes. Tell me that's not beautiful. Number of weeks again, 12th week, baby can move his thumb in opposition to his fingers. He swallows regularly. He moves gracefully. But wait a second. He swallows and breathes through the umbilical cord. It's not a human being until he comes out and breathes your air. What kind of Nazism is that? That's like saying if I'm on a respirator, I'm not a human being. Because I'm not breathing the air you breathe. Same thing. From week 13 to 22, you have what? Any group of cyclic fatty acids compounds with varying hormone-like effects, notably the promotion of uterine contractions. 13th week, he can kick his legs. I got to tell you a true story. I read his kick his legs. When my mom was pregnant with me, I was kicking so hard against her desk that it would move like this. And so she'd be writing and always mess it up. And the office would say, man, you can have a soccer player. I know you like that because we like soccer. Football. By the way, American football is not football. That's handball. It's barely kicked. It's a very boring sport. I'm sorry. Soccer is cool. Hockey is cool. Baseball, very boring too. Sorry. So anyway, so we call it football. You guys call it soccer, which is all backwards. So, you know what they did? Foreigner, yes I am. Listen, how do we play football? It's called rugby. Off with the gear and just run in the mud and let's see who's really big, right? I'm just joking. But so what they did is they got her that plastic carpet on the floor in front of the desk, you know, and a chair with wheels on it. She'd be going like this, and I would kick, and the chair would move a little bit. I'd mess up her paperwork. So I think of that, and I think about that in the pro-life view. You know what I mean? She could have gotten rid of me. I mean, they're kicking it hard. You know what I mean? It's like the moving it, kicking it with you. All right. So, see, you guys see that too, huh? I have to with my son. So you kick your legs, turn his feet, curl his toes, make a fist, suck his thumb, bend his wrist, turn his head, frown, open his mouth, press his lips tightly together. He drinks amniotic fluid. 16th week, weight increases 6 times since week 12. He's now 8 to 10 inches tall. 22nd week, he is now about 1 foot tall, weighs 1 pound. Fine baby hair begins to grow on his eyelids and his head. He sleeps and walks just as he will after birth. You know, I remember when my son Nikao, right when Nikao came out and we left the hospital, you know what I mean? I'm the dude that you'll see like push the baby around the hospital all the time. You know, get a little blanket around him, you're just pushing him up and down and vending machines, let mom sleep, just hanging out. It was awesome. I had my others when I was younger. But when you become a little older, you know, you appreciate these moments a lot more. And when we took him home, back then I had money, so we're living in Huntington Harbor, right? So whatever. So I'm laying there with my son, and I remember I would just put my hand here and just feel his hair, just like this, and he started screaming. My wife's like, "What are you doing? He hasn't developed his things yet," whatever you call it, right? And I was like, "Oh my God," I heard him, and he's all crying. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was just playing with his hair." All right, case in point, what do you think he's going to do in the womb? Oh, there's no fetal pain. Is that why you have to medicate mom and hope that the baby will feel it? And still, there's a silent scream because you can't hear it. Wish there was a stereo in there when you perform an abortion. Then maybe they would stop. Doesn't abortion anger you? You know what? We think we're so advanced. You know what? Morally, we're so depraved, it's ridiculous. It's like Dostoevsky said, right? Brothers Karamazov. He says, you know what? Man is artistically cruel. Artistically cruel. And that's exactly what this is. So, in any event, he sleeps and wakes just as he will after birth. In week 27, hysterectomy to end his life and remove body parts. You can do that. No problem. Just rip out the whole deal, so to speak. Week 38, end of time in the womb. Some babies are born before 38 weeks. You know, and here is, of course, one of the dilemmas we'll leave on this point. Fetal pain, slide 108 is where I will continue on populi. Philosophy, you're going to have to catch that online. Because it's 10:15, Stan.
Those doctors that are afraid here, ready abortion.
You already napped. You know, part of this is on populi. You're not on populi? Are you on populi?
Yeah.
Do you have access to the lectures on populi?
I don't know.
Or are you going to watch it?
I haven't been on since I signed up.
Since you what? I'm sorry?
Since I signed up for the cottage.